Nurtured by the pure water that is the source of life, fragrant flowers bloom in abundance, and the people face each day with hopeful smiles. Before the Heartless, before the experiments, before Xehanort, there was a world, a paradise, worthy of being called Radiant Garden.
In this episode of Shedding Starlight, we are going to discuss how this brilliant world fell into a dark era, and its different facilities that rose up through the shadows. Ansem the Wise ruled Radiant Garden peacefully thanks to his efforts for many years. But his attention turned towards the darkness in people's hearts. He was wary that such darkness would inevitably swallow his citizens. Unlike Xehanort, who was willing to sacrifice countless people to spur darkness into existence, Ansem researched in hopes of preventing it. With Xehanort, Ansem's apprentices tormented and discarded the very people he wanted to protect.
And so, in the original Kingdom Hearts game, we, as Sora, explore an enormous, mystifying castle that is completely devoid of its original occupants. In Kingdom Hearts 2, we revisit the same world, but now we see that surrounding the castle is a town rekindling its own life. A society once in shambles, Leon and his crew helped to rebuild the world into its former glory.
Meet the Hollow Bastion Restoration Committee.
We want to restore Hollow Bastion to what it used to be. Who knows? Maybe even something better.
But while Hollow Bastion is rebuilding itself piece by piece, cracks are still visible between the shards. And with each of these cracks is a crevice to explore.
When playing Kingdom Hearts 1, you're most likely and understandably under the impression that the device Xehanort invents to create Emblem Heartless was the room we see during our venture at the end of the world, what Hannah and I refer to as the World Terminus Lab. However, Kingdom Hearts 2 emphasizes that the lab both Xehanort and Ansem the Wise refer to when it comes to their experiments on the darkness of the heart is actually the enormous lab accessible via a secret passage in Ansem the Wise's study. This lab, called the Heartless Manufactory, has hundreds of capsules lined along the walls. With Ansem the Wise writing about how his apprentices collected a large number of subjects, this is where a majority of them met their fate. The Heartless Manufactory is overseen by a single observation room with an advanced computer. The character Tron reveals that Ansem the Wise took this computer and customized it for his own benefit. He also implies Xehanort installed the Master Control Program, which eventually hijacked the system to pump out virtual Heartless in the later part of Kingdom Hearts 2. However, this program was eradicated thanks to the efforts of Hollow Bastion's Restoration Committee. The MCP eradication program was installed onto a compact disc that Aerith inserted into the computer. But this isn't the only CD we see inserted into the computer.
In a flashback, we see a hooded Xemnas insert his own. Then he inputs the username another along with 6 different passwords, opening a huge trapdoor that was seamlessly embedded in the floor of the Heartless Manufactory. He enters, walking down a spiral staircase leading deep beneath the castle. At the bottom is a hall of cells, each locked with chains. This place is most likely the same area Xehanort writes about in Kingdom Hearts 1's second report. I can find those who had completely lost their hearts beneath the castle. Sometime later, I went below and was greeted by the strangest sight, creatures that seemed born of darkness. So when first experimenting on people's hearts, this is most likely where Xehanort and the apprentices discovered their first pureblood Heartless, in one or more of these cells. In the back of this hall is a circular white room, the Chamber of Repose.
If you recall, that's where we spent our time researching the darkness that resides within people's hearts. It's a graveyard that was sealed by order of Ansem the Wise.
The way Xigbar talks about this place makes it sound like the entire Hall of Cells is included in the Chamber of Repose, but usually when fans mention the chamber, more often than not, they're referring specifically to the room in the back, which Xemnas built after banishing Ansem the Wise. We'll talk more about this room in our final episode on Kingdom Hearts 2.
But of course there remains the question. If the Heartless Manufactory and the rooms beneath it are where Xehanort and Ansem the Wise performed experiments on the heart, what was the purpose of the World Terminus Lab? In our Kingdom Hearts 1 episode on Realms, during the discussion, we came to the theory that the reason Sora saw this room at the end of the world was that it was a memory of Hollow Bastion from Kairi's heart, which Sora connected with multiple times throughout Kingdom Hearts 1. In the maze of corridors leading to Ansem the Wise's study, there are multiple halls blocked off from cave-ins. Perhaps one of these paths originally led to this room. Beyond Radiant Garden's castle itself, there are even more crevices to explore. As you progress through the game, you'll eventually unlock a cavity at the base of the castle called the Cavern of Remembrance. This passage begins as a large cave which transitions to an open mine shaft, and then leads to a place with installed pipes and huge conveyor belts called the Engine Chamber. The white doors you pass through in this area all look exactly like the doors in Castle Oblivion. And at the end of this underground passage is a white hallway also modeled after Castle Oblivion, only accented with a wall of rising waterfalls like we see in Kingdom Hearts 1. This leads to a circular room, the one that differs from the Chamber of Repose, called the Garden of Assemblage, with a design scheme not resembling Castle Oblivion nor Hollow Bastion, but the world that never was. In the center is a computer terminal that summons 13 doorways similar to the one seen in the castle that never was, each leading to holograms of different organization members that you can fight. We don't yet know who specifically built this room and for what purpose, but it's important to address this room, as we'll see similar situations in the future story.
In Kingdom Hearts 1, Hollow Bastion is a castle suffocated by foreign pipes. In Kingdom Hearts 2, we see that same castle in restoration, with cranes dismantling those pipes. But in the distance is another grand castle, which had the doomed fate of crumpling to ruins, Villain's Vale. It is the base of the army Pete had been building since before Kingdom Hearts 1, an island in a sea of Heartless that eventually Sora and our heroes fought and dwindled. It's implied that Maleficent resided here before infiltrating Hollow Bastion years ago. Not only is she familiar with the place when she reunites with Pete in flashbacks, but in the Bailey at Radiant Garden, when observing the balcony, the reaction command says, Villain's Vale, where Maleficent used to reside. Villain's Vale may be confused with the castle of Hollow Bastion because they share visual similarities. Obviously, these fortresses have a giant Heartless crest embedded in the front, both of which are damaged in similar areas, the left of the face being exposed. These castles are also both overtaken by aforementioned pipes. In Hollow Bastion, it's evident these pipes grew suddenly, piercing through the structure, leaving cracks and rubble. Parts of the castle were completely overtaken, like vines swallowing an abandoned building. In comparison, Villain's Vale looks like a once castle whose structures were lopped off, fallen into a heap of ruins, exposing towers that were also threaded with pipes. One might wonder if Hollow Bastion could have followed Villain's Vale had the Restoration Committee not intervened to restore the castle.
Once there was a world of paradise, But when a certain few became too curious of the darkness in people's hearts, they failed to see the darkness growing within their own. And their whole world suffered for it and became Hollow Bastion, a place now sparse with life. Echoes of silence can be heard through a large lab, numerous halls. Rooms once occupied by shadows became occupied by nobody.
Fortunately, with the help of its surviving residents, the Restoration Committee, and even a program who accessed its system archives, Hollow Bastion is able to recover and again become the paradise it once was. Radiant Garden. So, I know that this stuff that we talked about today has been one of Mel's fixations on in this series for a long time. I think you included it in part of our Kingdom Hearts 1 like outline, but then we never really got into it, all of this stuff here. But I literally, before we recorded a couple days ago, I was like, Mel, this discussion is gonna be me giggling and kicking my feet just listening to you talk about this shit because it's so interesting, it's so exciting, and I'm gonna be like, yeah, I'm so excited. This stuff is so cool. I feel like you are the forefront like person to be talking about all of this stuff, because I think I mentioned at the end of last episode that I don't really see other people talking about this shit.
I know.
Nobody talks about it.
I know. It's because they're all obsessed with new characters that we won't get to for fucking like decades.
Yeah. And I mean, those like we'll get to those characters and they're still good, but like we got foundations good that we gotta explore the crevices of.
Yes. I fucking love this world. And part of what I think makes it so fun to talk about is the fact that none of these places are like, well, I can't say none of them, but little are these places talked about in cutscenes. Yeah. Where characters look around and they discuss the place. Like the Heartless Manufactory, yes. Villains Vale, a little bit. But nobody addresses the Chamber of... Well, I guess they do talk about the Chamber of Repose. But, like, not really.
Yeah.
Not really, you know?
Yeah.
Especially because we're not even touching on in this episode what happens in the Chamber of Repose. You know, like, we can't really dive into why Xemnas even enters that room until the end of this season, you know?
Yeah.
And even then, when we touch on it, there's still so much mystery surrounding it. And there's literally no cutscenes talking about the Garden of Assemblage. There's no... You know, at least the World Terminus Lab had a passage that sounded like Xehanort's Heartless wrote it, or Xehanort himself. But the Garden of Assemblage doesn't have anything like that. We have no idea why it was there. God. Oh, fuck, I love this fucking world. Okay, so let me just preface. I have a really bad habit of using Hollow Bastion and Radiant Garden interchangeably.
Yeah.
So don't get confused by that. Don't get confused. You know, maybe when I say Hollow Bastion, I might be referring to Kingdom Hearts 1, but it doesn't matter. It don't matter. Don't think too hard about it.
They're the same. Yeah.
They're the same.
Yeah. Yeah. I just want to like echo that. This place is so cool. Like it's like a lot of these games take place in places that are not original. Like they're kind of original in the fact that like the devs built like Atlantica for us to walk around and not walk around and swim around in. And like other places that are like from Disney movies. But this is an original world that we get to explore. And like it's kind of not where it all started, but like kind of where it all started. and like where the most kind of history and mysteries lie. And it's just so cool. It's so cool because it's like it's like 4 different places in one. It really crazy.
Is. I think that's one of the things we'll kind of talk about a little bit later with emails that I think is so interesting about Hollow Bastion is that on the surface, it just seems like it's, you know, Hollow Bastion or Radiant Garden, you know, by the way it looks and by its aesthetics. But then like, as you like, it's almost like, I'm going to sound crazy. It's almost like archaeology where the deeper you dig, the more you see different structures from different times as you're peeling back the layers of this world.
Yeah.
Because like there are places that seem like Castle Oblivion. And it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then you dig even deeper and it's the world that never was. And you're like, what the fuck? You know? It's so weird. It's so weird.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's try and talk about these different places, one place at a time. Okay, starting with the Heartless Manufactory.
Mm-hmm.
So neither of us realized it was called the Heartless Manufactory.
I literally wrote like a comment on our script. I'm like, where is this written down, this name? Because I did not know it was called this.
I had written in the script like Heartless Lab, like 5 different places, until I learned because I was looking at a map of Kingdom Hearts 2's like actual like map of Radiant Garden of like go in this room, turn left, go in this room, you know. And then I saw one of that this place was listed on the little diagram as Heartless Manufactory. And I was like, and it was in like the logo of the game. And so I was like, is this fucking official? Like, have I been calling it the Heartless Lab incorrectly like for 15 years? And I sure did. Let me tell you. And like, I think that kind of shows, like, okay, if anybody's listening and you're a hardcore Kingdom Hearts 2 fan and you've played Kingdom Hearts 2 a billion times, okay, listen. I can't speak for Hannah, but for me, I genuinely have not played the Kingdom Hearts games a lot because when you are using your hands to do art or to write, you can't use your hands for a controller for a video game.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think people realize that when you want to, I guess, make content of a game that you really like, you're taking away time from replaying that game.
Yeah.
And I've made a lot of shit over the years. So no, I don't have as much time to go back and replay games as much as people think.
Yeah.
And this is a room, the Heartless Manufactory is a room you can go into like once before you open the chest and get the puzzle piece and then you never have to enter it again, you know? So like, so me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's really just like, it's really there just to look at. Like we, right before we started the discussion, we were opening my file of the game. And yeah, there's a chest there, but like that's, again, really it. Like you can, there's like a big circle on the ground that you can kind of run around in, but you look up and it feels like you're looking up into space because the room is so big. And yeah, like there's really no reason why the game would like direct you down there other than just exploration.
Yeah. They probably, I was telling Hannah this, that it seemed like maybe fans think that they were planning like a boss battle there. And that's why there's like a little circular room you can walk around in. Because usually Kingdom Hearts bosses, the place that you're in is like a circular room, you know? Maybe so that you don't get caught in a corner and die, or I don't know. But I think if they weren't planning on doing that, I don't think they didn't have to let us go down there at all.
Yeah.
Like it's not really necessary because in the final game, it really is just one treasure chest and then one puzzle piece and that's it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. This room is too fucking tall. They really, you did not, the people's taxes went to this. Their taxes went to this.
Yeah.
It's so tall. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. It's crazy to look at. It's crazy to look at.
Okay, so one of the scenes that this room is in is a flashback of Xemnas inserting that little CD. Mm-hmm. And something that's really cool is that when the security camera picks Xemnas up, it says it says unknown at the bottom, which is a fun little reference to Kingdom Hearts 1, because when you fight Xemnas in Hollow Bastion, in Kingdom Hearts 1, mm-hmm. the name of him as a boss is unknown, because you don't know what's Xemnas. You don't know who the fuck that guy is. Mm-hmm. So I think that's such a fun little reference, a fun little detail.
Yeah.
And when he...
No, go for it.
I have to burp and it's not coming out. Okay. So... we talked about in our episode on Xehanort, and maybe even that episode on Organization 13 as well. But in our Kingdom Hearts 2 episode on Xehanort, we talked about how Xemnas inserted the CD, and then we said inserted the names of the princesses for the password, right? For DTD.
Yeah.
But, as is a note on YouTube, made a really good point in that it was probably the names of the apprentices and not the princesses. And the reason is because Xemnas inserted a CD, right? Which probably means he was accessing a completely different program to open that bottom door. So if he's accessing a completely different program that's not connected to like Tron, there's no reason he would need to know the names of the princesses.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so I think that's a really interesting note. And he, as is a note, did clarify that it's not exact because one of the usernames that has 5 letters is counted. One of them's like 1 letter off. One of the usernames or password codes is 1 letter off. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if that is maybe a mistranslation or something to do with the way Japanese can be translated into English. But if that's the case, I don't know which one it is, because I technically know a little bit of Japanese, but in order for me to figure this out, it'd be like, I would have to like write everything down and show my work as if I was doing a math problem. And
yeah.
I'm just not doing that. Not doing that. But I did look into it, and I did like write all the names. Hannah saw me writing down all the names, trying to figure it out. It is interesting.
Is there like implications to that at all? Like, does that change a narrative?
I don't think so. I think if anything, it might be in reference to the fact that the apprentices went down to that room for many years where they were checking up on the prisoners, pulling them out of the cells and experimenting on them, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I don't think it changes anything.
Just little details to look at then.
Yeah, I think if anything, it might imply that the apprentices were even more secretive with this whole project. Because I was telling Hannah earlier that to get to this lab, there's like a secret passage of Ansem's study. When you first enter the study, there's this whole empty wall, and it's a fake wall that leads to the lab. And so they knew what they were doing was bad or forbidden, because otherwise why hide it?
Yeah. Exactly.
And so maybe this CD with its own program to open the door and 6 different usernames, which are really bad passwords, because that's like why would you have a password?
That's the most
be your
predictable
own name?
thing to do. Yeah.
What?
Oh, 6 spaces. Oh, there's 6 scientists here.
What's your name? Yenzo? Okay, that fits this one. Okay, what's your name? Okay. Oh, goodness.
Which, like...
No wonder they got fucking car or whatever.
Yeah, that brings us around to a point that we'll probably repeat multiple times throughout this discussion is, like, what did they think was gonna happen? What did Ansem think was gonna happen? When he built this giant-ass lab, this evil-looking lab with containers for hearts. Like, bro... Like it literally looks like something out of Star Wars, like on the Death Star, you know? Mm-hmm. Like it's what did you think was gonna happen, my man, when you built this? Like insane.
Yeah. I'm gonna make a Star Wars reference later on. How funny. Okay, so moving on from the Heartless Manufactory, we can branch out from the castle a little and go to the Cavern of Remembrance. So before I actually get to like my bullet point, let me say something else that I didn't write down. I wondered, so in the Cavern of Remembrance, you get to, what was it called? Engine Chamber. And I was like, engine of what? Like, at one point when you're walking through the Cavern of Remembrance, you have like these conveyor belts and all these pipes that looked, not to be confused with the pipes that we'll discuss in a bit, but they look like normal pipes that you would build and like assemble. And like, I just still don't know what the fuck this place even does and what it's for. And so I wondered if it was like supposed to power up the lab.
Yeah, that would make sense.
It would make sense, but then I feel like that would really imply that they got like a bunch of construction workers to make this lab. Yeah. And like, this is like a little too political. I don't think Kingdom Hearts would like go this way. But like, if people's taxes are paying for this lab and construction workers are making this lab and powering up this lab, like, what was even the cover up? Like, what did they even say that this fucking was for?
It like, at the same time, I remember literally just jumping through it a few minutes ago. I was making comments of like, no one's like, how does anyone traverse this except for Sora? Like, if you've been in there,
good point.
Like, you have to basically get abilities that will allow you to jump the fuck around so you can like go through the pipes, hang on the ledge so you can jump up under a thing so you can reach up high enough to grab onto ledge to get to the next room. It's like, how is anyone normal walking through here?
Yeah.
It like, I know that fucking shit is not up to code for sure. If they did have a construction crew, like it's
so true.
So like like that makes me think that it's not like they didn't get anyone to do it. They were doing a shoddy job themselves, but then like, did they build all that themselves? How did they do that? And again, this is a world where people can do magic, so like whatever. But it's so weird. Like, how did it get there? How did they put it there? And why is it so why are there puzzles I need to solve in order to get through it? You know? It's like, and I know that's just game design, whatever. But like, this is a game that we dive this deep into. And that there's usually more reasons for this sort of stuff. So like, it's interesting to think about.
And we haven't even gotten what this whole path leads to, which is the Garden of Assemblage, which is its own fucking puzzle.
Yeah.
Which, like, okay. So, with the way the Garden of Assemblage looks, like the actual appearance, and then the room before it, the white room of Castle Oblivion, I describe it as, like, it's very Lugia, it's very Blue Eyes White Dragon, and I live.
It's so cool.
It's very Y2K. It's definitely, like, the Y2K look that people are trying to capture again. I don't know if that's still, like, on trend, but it was, like, at least a few months ago.
Yeah.
But I love it. But once again, it doesn't look anything like Hollow Bastion. In fact, let me see. Let me skip ahead just for a second to an email.
It's like jarring how different it is. Like, it's so, every passage that you take, no matter how you get there, is so worn down, very blue and red and purple. And then all of a sudden you are surrounded by white, pristine, you know, colorless waterfalls going upside down. It's so jarring. And the fact that the Garden of Assemblage, again, we were just running around it a few minutes ago, it's not inside. It's outside. There's no roof to it.
Yeah.
It's like, where is that? Like, anyone could just jump in. It's so, like, they're just hiding it behind the castle but it's not behind the castle. It's next to the castle, because you can see you can see the top of the castle from it. It's weird.
Once again, what were they thinking? What did you think was going to happen? Like, I think the weirdest thing about... Okay. My mind is racing like a million miles an hour, so let me just hit the brakes, okay? So we got an email from Flynn, who's, by the way, says his organization name would be either Zarin or Sharon, which is pretty cool. Or Zarin.
Love it, love it.
But he brought up a really good point in his email where he says of the 13 doors that are each lead to a different member of the organization, it includes Roxas. So this place must have been built or at least updated within the past year of the time Sora finds it, which I think is...
That's such a good point. That's such a great point.
It's such a great point. And that's, again, like, why I bring up, like, archaeology. Like, if we just look at, like, how one... Okay, so flashback to the cutscene of Xigbar and Zexion and how they bring up, like, how Xigbar was like, I recruited someone just the other day, Marluxia or whatever.
Yeah.
And how they're talking about going to Castle Oblivion. Like, I feel like even that is a hint of when when the Garden of Assemblage, all these fucking names, I feel like I'm playing Genshin. It's really bullshit. When the Garden of Assemblage was made and how the hallway leading up to it looks exactly like Castle Oblivion. Like, we even pointed out, you and me, before we started recording, pointed out how the roses in Castle Oblivion are even in this hallway.
Yeah.
And how, like, I feel like because it's based off of Castle Oblivion, it must have been created during the era that Castle Oblivion was really prevalent in the organization's time. And
they hadn't updated their branding yet. That was still their old branding.
When you're redoing the house and you're doing it like one room at a time and you haven't gotten to the bathroom yet and it still looks like it's from the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you get to what seems to be a lot new. I don't know. I just think it's crazy how I want to say how the organization made it during their time at the world that never was. But we don't even know if it was the organization who fucking made this place.
Yeah.
Because there's so little information about it.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so first of all, if you're listening and you're a new listener and you haven't even finished playing the Kingdom Hearts series, let me tell you this. We still, to this day, don't know anything about this room.
No.
So when me and Hannah are theorizing about it right now, it's like true theorizing.
It's for real.
It's for real. And so part of me thinks that, like, if we really don't have confirmation that it was the organization who made this place, if it was not, then that means some fucko is recording data of the Organization 13 members and, like, their fighting techniques and somehow scanned them to be, like, a model to fight with.
Yeah.
And just kept it all on a computer in so close to one of their bases. It's fucking weird. I almost would rather prefer it is the organization, because otherwise the implications are so big and so major that it, like, it's overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my god, okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Treasure Planet?
A long time ago, yeah.
There's this fucking robot, and at one point, he always talks a lot. And at one point, he, like, starts talking and panicking so much that he literally breaks down. And that's what I feel like just happened to me.
That's what's going to start happening once we get to later games. More updated games.
Oh my god. Once again, if you're listening and you have not played all the Kingdom Hearts games, Kingdom Hearts 2 is nothing compared to lore expansion. It's literally like baby mode.
Yeah, this is baby mode.
Oh my god.
Stick with it. It's great. This series is very good.
So moving on to the villain's Vale.
the second castle that shows up.
We've only talked about one castle. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Okay, so I, for a long time, thought that Villain's Vale was the castle from Kingdom Hearts 1. And I thought, like, everybody moved
Yeah.
miles away to, like, rebuild. But no. It's the same castle. And Villain's Vale was always there, and we just didn't notice until now.
Yeah.
But it's just weird to me how they look similar. And that's why I wonder, why I kind of implied in the script, the theory, which, once again, Villain's Vale is another place that has never been referenced ever again. Literally never. Mm-hmm. So again, and you might be wondering, you might be thinking, why the fuck are you talking about things that are never referenced again? Like, why are you wasting my time? Listen, if you want to catch up to Nomura, you have to pass him. That's the only way. You can't always follow behind him because you're gonna be behind. You gotta think ahead, bitch.
Yeah.
That's what we're fucking doing, okay?
Yeah.
And you know what? That type of thinking has rewarded us in the past.
Yeah.
You don't know it, but it has. Mm-hmm. So you just gotta trust us. You gotta trust us.
It's also just like, it's like there's a full like boss battle in the place where Villain's Vale is like so clearly showed off. Like, it clearly matters. Like, especially with like Maleficent and Pete's story.
Yeah,
that we'll come back to eventually. But like, it's cool and it's weird and it's mysterious.
Isn't that enough for
That's
you
enough.
people?
That's enough for us. Like, I think it's absolutely worth talking about. Because again, it's so weird. Where the fuck did it come from? Where was it before now?
Yeah. I was telling Hannah that I wonder if before Ansem the Wise's time, that was the original town. And maybe, like I said, before Ansem the Wise, this is way before him, that something happened and they had to move. And so that's like, quote unquote, old Radiant Garden. The way people say like old town, whatever.
Yeah. Because if you look at it, there's like still rubble at the bottom that looks like separate buildings to me.
Yeah,
and,
it
like
looks
bridges and
like
stuff.
a church or like a, definitely.
So it's like something happened there. We don't know
That's
what.
a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, okay, I think that is partly why I think Hollow Bastion, the castle that we know, that we explored in Kingdom Hearts 1, I think that's why it being, like, swallowed up by pipes, almost, like, suffocating it. Like, to me, like, I'm gonna sound fucking crazy here, but bear with me. Yeah. You know how this is so crazy. You know how worms eat poop and like poop out mud and you can see it like go through their body. Get it together.
I'm gonna take your word for it on this one.
My point is, it almost feels to me like the pipes are eating the building of Hollow Bastion, which I know sounds fucking crazy. But when we look at Villain's Vale, it looks like it got fucking disintegrated.
Yeah.
And we still see pipes going through those towers.
Yeah.
And so I just can't help but think that whatever happened to Villain's Vale would have been Hollow Bastion's fate. And Hollow Bastion would have ended up just like that fucking place.
Yeah.
Had the restoration committee not stepped in and be like, let's protect our home. And started dismantling the pipes. Yeah. That's really what it looks like to me.
Yeah. Because it, like, if you look at Villain's Vale, it really looks like the pipes are like veins. In the weird 3 pillars or whatever that castle is.
Which is why I was showing you earlier how, like, the different areas of Hollow Bastion where the pipes pierce the fucking structure of the building.
Yeah.
And so if they're piercing the structure of this building, and they also look like veins piercing the other buildings, like, it's all connected.
Yeah.
I don't know how, but it is. It's gotta be.
No, yeah, and
be.
that reminds me of the other conversation we were having earlier about the room inside Hollow Bastion from Kingdom Hearts 1. Like, this whole theme of machinery looking like the inside of a person, like looking like an organ.
Yeah. Okay, so
like,
Hannah's...
Yeah.
Hannah's talking about the room we fight Riku in.
Yeah.
And he's in his cool little outfit, possessed by Ansem. And there's like that big shape of a heart that we have to unlock the keyhole in. That's what she's talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I should have been clear.
Well, that's fine. But you're right, Hannah. The pipes and the way they kind of form out of that heart make it look like an organ. Like the heart, the arteries and the veins of the different chambers of the heart.
Yeah. And we had a little moment because I said the word organ and I meant like a human organ, like an organ inside the body, but Mel interpreted that as like a piano organ. And it's like, it's like both, which is crazy. And like, that's such a cool theme that keeps repeating here.
Yeah.
Like with the pipes being veins and like part of a bigger body. It's crazy. It's cool. I swear there is something here. There's something here. And Nomura has been fucking, cause like, especially because, okay, conspiracy time, like put your foil hats on. Let's go.
Like,
Let's go.
I guess it's not that conspiracy, but so Kingdom Hearts 1, for a long time, over the years to Kingdom Hearts fans, felt like it was kind of getting forgotten. Like, it didn't really matter that much. And then when the HD collections came out, like 10 years later, suddenly Kingdom Hearts 1 started being referenced more and more in recent games. Mm-hmm. And so I theorized that Nomura kind of forgot about Kingdom Hearts 1 for a while. And then when he had to, like, lead its remastering, he took mental notes of all these different details. Yeah. Because there's all these different things that are now coming back. Mm-hmm. And so it would not surprise me if he looked at Kingdom Hearts 1 Hollow Bastion and was like, oh yeah, we had some cool ideas with this castle. Mm-hmm. We should bring it back. That wouldn't surprise me. Like I just feel it, I feel it.
No, that makes
be wrong, but
yeah, that makes too much sense. Like, honestly.
It's just hard to confirm it because Nomura has a lot of interviews and he's never said anything like that in any of his interviews. But just like the evidence is there. So.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
With Villain's Vale, I was talking about how it seems to be like a ruined version of what Hollow Bastion could have been. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember if I used this exact word in the script, but it really reminds me of when you're lopping off branches off a tree. Mm-hmm. Like, the tree itself is still there, and the towers of the castle are still there. But, like, somehow all of the branches and all of the wings of the castle just fucking fell off.
Yeah. Damn,
and
they fell off.
They fell off. And it's just weird.
Yeah.
And I guess that's really all I have what I wrote about that. But it's just such a weird way to design ruins.
Yeah. It's like, I agree. There's more there. And it does feel like, really, if you go into the game and, like, go to Villain's Vale, go to that one little area where you fight Sephiroth, look down at the bottom of it, there's, like, ruins of other buildings down there. It's very weird. And like talking about all this really, like, and also as I was running around a little bit, it makes me wish that like this game, this series kind of in general, was just a little bit more open world, because the way you kind of traverse through, like, between the main Hollow Bastion, like, town square to where Villain's Vale is, you suddenly, if you go to that area, you turn around and, like, the other castle is, like, miles and miles and miles in the distance, and it's a tiny little dot that you can barely see. And it's like, I kind of wish it was more connected so I could kind of get a better, like, visual in my head on, like, how these places mesh together. And I guess that's kind of the point.
Positions.
Yeah, that's kind of the point, I guess, of, like, they're very far away. But, like, I don't know. It seems like, because, like, the architecture also of those ruins that are at the bottom of Villain's Vale is pretty similar to everything that's over in Hollow Bastion, yeah? Would you say that? I guess maybe more the castle in general, like when you're walking through the castle.
Yeah, that I can see.
I don't know, maybe that's just my opinion. But, or like, this matches the architecture that we see of the Hollow Bastion castle in Kingdom Hearts 1. Yeah?
Oh my gosh, here's a great picture somebody posted. Oh my god, I should make out with them. What a great picture.
Oh, hell yeah.
And it kind of compares. Oh, fuck. This is a great... Wow. Okay, interesting. And you know what? This picture... Okay, let me describe to you, the listener, what we're looking at.
I can link it in the show notes so you can see what we're looking at.
Just in case you didn't click the link, we're looking at a picture that compares the castle from the first game to the castle in the second game in very similar positions and angles. And it really helps you understand that, yes, these are the same castles. But what I think is interesting about this is that in the Kingdom Hearts 2 version of Hollow Bastion, you do see the construction rails? What's it called when
Cranes?
Somebody's like... not necessarily the cranes, but like when someone is like working on a building from the outside and they have to put like all these rails up. So
scaffolding?
Scaffolding.
Yeah.
You can see the scaffolding within the base of the castle of the second version. Do you see that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that was something I never noticed before. And you can really tell that they're not even just removing the pipes, they are like straight up rebuilding the castle. This is a really good image because we got a couple of emails that were like, so what do you guys think of Kingdom Hearts 2's castle looking so different from the first? Like, were you disappointed? Like, because I think that's kind of an overall accepted or agreed upon opinion is that Kingdom Hearts 2's interpretation of the castle, to me at least, is a little bit more disappointing than it was in the first game, because in the first game it's just so like mysterious, and the execution of like the different like platforms and elevators and the crystals and the glass walls and everything is just so grandiose. And why do I always feel like I'm out of breath? I always
you
feel
are
like
talking a lot. In a good way.
But it's not in this second game as much, but it's interesting to see these two pictures comparing, because maybe it's not in the second game as much because either if it wasn't already destroyed by the time of the second Kingdom Hearts game, maybe they had to destroy it themselves to rebuild the castle almost, not necessarily from the ground up, but they did a lot of fucking renovations on this castle.
Yeah. You know what I can't get over? This
What?
is kind of steering in a different direction. But, like, the fact that this angle is almost identical, but the Kingdom Hearts 2 one's in the Garden of Assemblage, and the Kingdom Hearts 1 is where all those platforms were. You know, where when you're getting into the castle. And they have, like, the same opening.
Hannah! Oh my god, Hannah! The Garden of Assemblage is where the ruins were from the first game, because it's upside down waterfalls. We're surrounded by upside down waterfalls in both games. And like we said, was it Flynn who pointed out that the Garden of Assemblage had to be made recently because it had Roxas's data?
Bro.
Oh my god! Did we just fucking, like, not crack it, but, like, Oh my god. Could you imagine if the game actually fucking did that?
Like, what else would it be?
Oh my god.
Like, come on.
Dude, I think that's it.
That has to be, right? Like, where else, what the fuck would that be?
So, who else? Okay, so Dani sent us an email asking, where the fuck are the rising falls? Like, where are the upside down waterfalls? And then I was going to say in response to that email that the only place we see the upside down waterfalls is in the Garden of Assemblage and the hallway before it.
Yeah.
So what if they literally built over...
That has to be it.
Oh my god!
That has to be it.
I'm literally losing my mind. Like, I don't think I've ever had an epiphany caught on record before. This is usually a very private process for me where I'm in my room by myself. Oh my god.
We're building the lore as we speak on Shedding Starlight. Like, come on. This is crazy.
Oh my god. Okay. I mean, where do we even go from here?
I don't know. Like,
okay, where are we?
We're literally piecing it together. We've got the fucking conspiracy board. We just connected one string over to another string and we cracked the case. Like,
does this picture that I even got this from even talk about this? Let me see what they wrote. Okay, first of all, it was... No way. They just posted the image by itself. Maybe they got it from somewhere else. Let me search it with Google and see if I can find the source of this image that we're talking about. Because maybe we're not the first people to come to this conclusion. And that is something I always think is interesting. Is when Kingdom Hearts fans come to the conclusion or come to theories completely separate from one another. And not like...
not like, after reading from each other.
Yes, exactly. Let me say this. If you are listening and you're like, oh my god, this is my picture. Shout out to fucking you, dude. Shout out to fucking you. Maybe it's from KH Trinity for the win on Tumblr. But if this is a repost, then shout out to the original fucking poster. Because that is actually fucking coconuts. Okay, I'm normal again. Don't worry about it. I'm normal again. The clickbait title on this episode is gonna be so good.
Let's go.
Okay,
So as I was reading through this script, I was like, part of the restoration committee, something that they, I guess, found was the Heartless defense system. They found it. That's a confirmation. Okay, interesting. They found the Heartless defense system, which is like, I don't even know if that's what it's called, but the little fucking circles that help you beat Heartless whenever you're there, which is very interesting. If that's something that they found, is that something they can outsource? What do we need to be doing this? Like, you don't even need Sora anymore. Like,
actually, let me make sure, just in case.
Okay.
Because Yuffie does mention it. Okay, so she says, that's the town's defense mechanism. Okay, so at one point, Sid says about the MCP, that evil little computer program. It says, it's been using data in the computer to crank out Heartless. It's also been messing around with the town's control system, too. And I assume control system is the defense system. But I guess they don't actually say, at least in this scene, who found what. Because I thought in my head, they said it in a way that implies that the control system existed for a long time. But I guess that's not the case. And if Sid is working on his little computer and he's smart enough to come up with a program that defeats the MCP, then I assume he's smart enough to come up with a program that also protects the town. And I do apologize if there's very clearly a line where they say it and I'm missing it. I do apologize for that. But I will say that if they found it and they didn't make it themselves, then to me that has a really interesting implication of either Ansem the Wise himself or the apprentices coded a system in case things went out of control and like Heartless got way too populated, where they made a system that would defend against the Heartless. But then once again, that kind of like begs the question, like, then what the fuck? What the fuck were you thinking? What were you thinking? I just want to pull all these men by their ears and sit them down and go,
what are you doing?
Shake my finger at them, you know? But then I also had the point that, you know, we've talked before, especially in season 1, about how Hollow Bastion was overcome with Heartless thanks to these experiments, but Hollow Bastion never fell into the realm of darkness. It always stayed in the realm of light. And so, but we didn't really have an answer as to why. And so I think it would be interesting if this system that they coded was able to hold the Heartless back just enough to keep the world from into the realm of light. And I don't know if that's the case, but it would be interesting if it was.
Yeah.
Flynn brought up a really good point. So Flynn, okay, Flynn and me are Tron buddies. Like, that's how we met. We met through Tron. Okay, so of course Flynn wants to talk about Tron. Okay, and he says, I've been dying to talk about Tron. So Xehanort, logged in with Ansem's account, copies over the MCP from another world. Because in the original Tron movies, the MCP is from like a fucking city. It's from like Encom or like Enron. What, I forget which is the real company and which is the fake company from the movie. So I do apologize. And then Ansem the Wise copied Tron and the whole system from that world too. And so, like, how did they copy this computer system from what is essentially, like, another Disney world? Because Tron is a Disney movie. So, it is very weird how they were able to get this computer system from, supposedly, as far as we know, a completely other fucking world. And I feel like maybe the reason I thought that was interesting is because of... This is so random. Of the photograph from Deep Jungle. Do you remember the photograph of Hollow Bastion's castle?
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of weird that we have all these characters who seemingly can't get off their planet.
Yeah.
But somehow pieces of Hollow Bastion end up elsewhere and vice versa. I don't really know why.
That's so cool to think about.
But it is weird to think about. Especially if Tron 3 comes out and they, like, want to make a Tron 3 world or something. Like, that would be fucking crazy. But.
Yeah, that's so weird.
Yeah.
Someone mailed him a copy of the CD. Just through snail mail.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's all I have in my brain, dude. That fucking realization, like, took everything out of me.
We have explored so much in this episode. This is why I was so excited for this episode. We're literally breaking new ground here. Like, how insane. So yeah, it's cool. It's awesome. I love this place. I think
seriously,
it's crazy.
One of the coolest worlds in all of Kingdom Hearts, in my opinion. It's just so cool. There's so much to it. There's so much history in it. Yeah. When you come here, you know you're gonna get good shit. Like, it's so good.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Mel, what's our next episode going to be about?
So, next episode, we're talking about Ansem the Wise becoming DiZ, and we're also talking about Riku and how these two characters kind of worked together in Kingdom Hearts 2, and the kind of weird things they have in common, like their relationship to Ansem, the Seeker of Darkness, Xehanort's Heartless, and how both these two guys kind of looked like him at one point in their lives, and their relationship to darkness, and basically how Riku kind of changed DiZ's heart and kind of made him realize, you know, we're diving into that whole relationship. Them working together and then the things they have in common. So that'll be the next episode.
Amazing. Well, you can send your questions to sheddingstarlight@gmail.com. So, If you're listening to this on Patreon, thank you for being a patron. You're listening to this
Thank
one day
you.
early on Sunday instead of Monday. So yeah, patron perks for being part of our Patreon. And the link to that is in the description of both the audio and the video. If you're listening on YouTube, like the video, subscribe, share with a friend. You know the fucking deal at this point. If you're listening on audio, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And yeah, I think that's it. Anything else, Mel?
No, but I had a lot of fun today.
I did too, bitch. I'm gonna be thinking about this one for a while.
Thank you so much for listening, everybody.
Yeah, thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the Starlight.